What's going on, everyone? This is Brian Turner here with another episode of the No Stress Midwest podcast. We're in season 5 right now, doing just Coaches Edition. Today, we're joined by a very special guest, Mr. Jordan Ferrell of the Oakland Roots. To me, one of the coolest clubs that's now entering the USL Championship in the recent years. The dude's like in his 30s. He's the TD. He's got USL Championship head coaching experience. He's been overseas, kind of doing everything that I want to do as a coach. And we've got him on as a podcast episode or a podcast guest. So Jordan, how's it going, man?
Doing all right, Brian. How's everything?
It's good. You're in California, so I just feel like things are always just a little better out there. Maybe that's just someone in the Midwest looking out, looking in. But what's Oakland like? What's the weather like today?
Oh man, it's marvelous. I think it's supposed to be 75 like it is most days. We're certainly lucky out here, but there's benefits and drawbacks. I think my cost of living might be double what yours is there. So
More than likely. More than
you know,
likely, yes.
but
Yeah,
it's worth it,
no.
man.
Cool. So kind of I want to get started, let the guests know how we were introduced. I can't even say how we've met because we haven't met yet. Um, but there was a buddy of ours, Josh Duffy, who's with Sporting, and I don't quite know how you two got connected, but I reached out to Duffy and was just kind of telling him what my goals were with coaching at the next level, and he was like, "Hey, there's this guy Jordan I know, maybe worth a phone call." And yeah. So how did you and Duffy meet?
Yeah, man. Well, Josh, I mean, he spent some time out here in Northern California. I know he's working in college with St. Mary's and doing some other scouting and stuff like that. And
Right.
really good dude. So if he reaches out and says, "Hey, I got this guy," I would think it would be helpful to him to at least shed some light on your career and path you traveled and stuff like that. Obviously, it's a good look if he's introducing me to somebody. So he's a great guy, and I think connections like this are what the real soccer world's built off of. And it's a very small world, and we're all lucky enough to work in it on our different projects. But it's always good to meet good people. So it's been, I guess, a couple long conversations that we've had about the game, about life, about a lot of different things. So I'm really honored to be on the podcast.
Yeah, no, it's funny. Our first conversation, I think, was like 2 hours, 2+ hours. And I just remember I was like, whoa. I was like, I was not expecting that. But then it's kind of like every conversation after, I mean, it's been fairly decent in length, but I think it's been very informative and helpful. Just, even you shedding some light and input on what to do before the my USL 2 season. And like, hey, don't ask or wait to be told what to do. Just say, hey, these are all the things I can do, and unless you say don't do it, I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I went into it with the season this year. That was really good advice. Um, but okay, enough about that. Let's get to what people really care to know about, which is you. So let's kind of talk about early on. Like, I'm guessing you were a player, right? You've played at, I know, a decent level. But what was the introduction into coaching, right? At what point of your career was it early on? Was it when you realized, hey, this playing thing ain't gonna be it? How did that come about?
Yeah, so I played all the way through college and after college as well. But when I was in college, I think it was summer between my sophomore and my junior year, I got a great opportunity to go up Seattle, where the Sounders train at Starfire Complex there in Seattle, and run camps like literally all day, every day, 5 days a week, some stuff on the weekends. And it was so much fun. I think just being around kids, and I was learning so much from the senior coaches about how to teach technique or how to teach individual tactical stuff, and it was really fascinating. I always knew, I wanted to experience football in Europe, and so after I graduated college, bought a one-way ticket actually, and went over to Germany, and I started, playing over there in what's the fifth division, like the state of Bavaria league. And it was a really good opportunity for me. I knew that I wanted to coach at that point in time. So I was approaching it less as like, I'm going to be a Bundesliga player, especially because, the first couple sessions I was out there, I saw the U10s training and I was like, man, these kids' technique and
Right.
their like reading of the game was so advanced at 9, 10 years old. But that also was really, I think, the spark that for me was like, okay, the capacity of a young player there in Germany, which at that time, this is 2010, and so you're seeing 2009 into 2010, that I was there, and so obviously 4 years later they win the World Cup, and you're seeing the fruits of 10 years of work. If you've ever read the book Das Reboot, or about kind of German football and how they went through this, excuse me, this reckoning back
Mhm.
in due to Euro 2000 and some of the other results that they'd had. So it was really cool for a little over a year and a half to just be engrossed in that type of a soccer culture. I started coaching while I was there. I coached the 17s at one of the clubs that I was at, which was cool. We played Bayern Munich 16s and 1860s 16s, FC Nuremberg, those types of clubs. But to see it there in Germany and to know what existed or didn't exist here in the United States, at least in my neck of the woods here in Northern California, was, I think it was like one of those things like, do you stay here and make yourself better as a coach? Or do you kind of go back and start to make
Share
yourself
that.
better as a coach, but also give it back to the
Right.
people that, from where you came from? And that was big for me. So, I probably could have bumped around some amateur divisions and done some coaching for a little bit longer, but I came back and I started my master's in sports pedagogy, in Stockton, and just got my teeth into coaching at the collegiate level, at the junior college, and then on to Division 1, but also at the youth level, and started to work like at as many levels as I possibly could when I returned. So it was a good experience, like transitioning from playing to coaching. But I
Yeah,
kind of knew that playing wasn't going to be a long career for me, and
for
coaching
sure.
was just, there's at every turn there was so much more to learn and grow in. So it was always kind of my direction.
Right, right. And then, fast forward that 10-year-old was Joshua Kimmich, and now he's right, he's he's there
Yeah, yeah.
balling for the first team. Um, no, so what was like you mentioned, you picked up all this knowledge over there in Germany, and I'm sure there was a wealth of it. I'm guessing you taught yourself German while you were over there, and how is your German now?
Mein Deutsch ist ganz schlecht, aber ich kann nur ein bisschen, die einfache Würde. So my
Sounds
German's
good.
pretty bad. My German's pretty bad now, but I can do the easy stuff.
There we go. Okay, that was
uh,
that was better than mine.
yeah. No. So it was. So when I got there, I got a couple language school lessons for about 3 months, and it took me about 4 months to be where I could like converse with my teammates. And the second club I signed at, I actually wasn't allowed to speak English, so that was really helpful
Okay.
because it forced me to have to solve problems with teammates and just have
Yeah.
general conversations in German, and that was really good.
Yeah. So kind of talk to us. You've coached at one, you've coached in another country, okay? You've coached the youth level there, you've coached some youth level here in the States, you've coached at a professional level here. What are some of the similarities that you find with coaching at all levels versus what are some of the maybe not so obvious differences in the sense of, oh, yeah, they're 8 or they're 10 and they're 30, right? Like, what are some things that maybe like psychological or how you have to, as a coach, change and adapt to the level? I know you still do some work with coaching within your club and at multiple levels. Um, so, what are some of the similarities? What are some of the differences?
No Stress Midwest has partnered with TechBall to become the Midwest host site for TechBall official league play and tournaments. On Thursdays from 8 to 10 p.m. and Sundays from 3 to 5 p.m., No Stress Midwest will be hosting TechBall pickup play at the soccer lot. Swing by and see what all the fun's about. To stay up to date on all information regarding Tech Ball through No Stress Midwest, visit our website at www.nostressmidwest.com/techball. You'll be able to see all of the upcoming events we have, such as league play, tournaments, and any changes to pick up.
From a similarity standpoint, I think the number one thing is that whether it's an 8-year-old or an 18-year-old, 28-year-old, a 38-year-old, they're all humans. And I think if you start with that and really keep that in the forefront, no matter what, you recognize like the ball involved or the ball not involved, like we're talking about a human being, and that we should be thinking about something much bigger than the game always. So I think that's one of the things, whether it was in Germany with 10-year-olds or 17-year-olds that I was coaching, or here at the professional level, like we're still dealing with human beings, and you still should seek to connect with people as humans. So I think that for me has always been the number one thing to keep in mind, and also the number one similarity of all of the environments that I've been in. The other thing that I tell a lot of coaches, they talk about what level they want to coach at or what level they are coaching at, or everything in between. And the reality is, that KISS principle, keep it simple, stupid, is like is one of the most important things, whether it's, the ongoing debate of, is it tactics? Is it strategy? Is it training methodology? Is it rondo? Is it not rondo? What is it?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, like football is a very, very simple game, and it's complicated by the time that we have to talk about it and to use pieces of paper and all that stuff. So
100%.
I think that for me is and I've seen it coaching at the professional level, where you can have a lot of really good ideas, but it's the simplicity with which you translate it to the players. And that was a learning curve for me, right? Having a veteran come over and say, like, look, dude, I've played at a lot of different levels, and I think it would help you if you just simplified it. And that was like, I knew that, but I didn't realize that I wasn't doing it. And same thing with the, now you see it, you run camps, or my little 5-year-old son is starting to play soccer, and everybody's asking me, well, what about this? What about that? And I'm like, look, keep it simple. So it's interesting how much that applies all across the globe. Because when people ask about my time in Germany, and they say like, oh, was it something training? Was it something this or that? The reality was they created really simple context that demanded, of the players, but the players had so much fun that, that we were working with in the youth. And obviously it's maybe slightly different in the professional level, but nonetheless, I saw trainings from FC Nuremberg, from credit for first Bundesliga, second Bundesliga, third Bundesliga, Regionalliga, like all levels. And there's complexity for sure. And there's also simplicity to it. So I think the best players make the game look easy, and that's, I think, what you're trying to always get across to players, is how they can do things simply that are really, really effective.
Right. It's like those the basic stuff, and being a personal or a private trainer, there's just fundamentals like the V touches or stuff like that, where I'm like, yeah, it looks really cool when you see Ronaldo do 20 scissors step overs. I was like, but what's the move that beats him? Right. I was like, really, it's a very simple one. It's just all this other stuff that just makes it look really cool. But at the end of the day, under all the condiments on a burger, it's a freaking meat and it's a patty, right? Like,
That's right.
that's what it is. So all right, man. And I've had this talk with you before, and I really liked your answer to it. So I'm gonna bring it up again. So like, you're currently the technical director, right, at Oakland Roots. For those listeners that aren't as familiar with USL, and the pro level, it's in the USL Championship. They have like probably one of the best social media pages. He's not paying me to say this. Their jerseys, they're just like all around gear. It's just like class to me. But okay, so you're a technical director for the club. I think it was last season. You were an interim head coach, or maybe you were the head coach and technical director as well. But once again, like now you're only one. So is there a role or is there a hat that you like wearing more than the other? Do you, enjoy the head coach? And, I think we were talking about like when you're down on the field and you scored that late game winner in like the 90 plus, of 3 minute stoppage, like that stuff gets you going, right? Versus like the technical director where you're just kind of overseeing and your heart doesn't beat or pump get as up as, but it doesn't get as down as well. So where's your head at with that?
Yeah, it's I've been very fortunate to wear a number of hats for Oakland Roots, but also in my career, where I've seen, coaching at all levels. And the one thing that I'll always say is, like, on field coaching is for me, that's the bread and butter, right?
Mm,
And I say that because that is the how do I say it? It's like the basic unit of how you build a style of play, of how you build a culture, of how you build a club, is within the training environment, day after day after day after day.
right.
And what you see on the field on game day is built in training. And that's something that whether I'm technical director, head coach, assistant coach, doesn't matter. Like, training is so valuable, in my opinion. And it's why I spend so much time with coaches, with my staff when I'm head coach, or now as technical director with the different coaches, trying to create the type of context and training that will translate to the game. I mean, at the end of the day, I got into football because I believe that football is such an incredible tool to change the world around us, to
Yeah.
bring happiness to people, both the players and fans, to really bring a sense of community to certain places. Like you mentioned, and 100% facts on the gear, the social media, all that stuff.
Yeah.
But the biggest thing that I love about Oakland Roots, and since day one, is that they've been trying to take what has already existed within Oakland. And there's grimy parts of Oakland, everybody knows that, but there's also this beautiful aspect of Oakland where it champions the best in humanity, and it allows for that to really blossom and amplify. And that's been what our club's been about. So football has just been a tool. So for
Mm,
me, when I come to the field, last year as the head coach, it was like, no, we got to be good. We've
right.
got to play
Right.
exciting football because that's what a community demands of us. And
Right.
I cannot say there's any feeling like um, you know, winning in a dramatic fashion at home in front of your
Hmm.
fans, where the energy is just unreal, and it's not being pushed by you; it's being given to you by everybody in the stands. And you know how much it means to the people that you see walking the streets or driving the streets and whatnot. So I think that part of a while ago, I said, to myself, I wrote down, on field coaching drives my economic engine. And it's tough. Some people go, well, why did you choose technical director? Well, technical director allows me to develop those type of on-field coaching environments,
Hmm.
that it isn't just, and I think the role as technical director is about building the overall football side of the club.
For sure.
And
And the
and when you're
vision.
coaching, yeah, exactly. When you're a head coach, you're focused on winning that game. You're
Yeah.
focused on
Yeah.
winning these few
Yeah.
games. And you have to accept that at the professional level, you lose a couple games and you might be looking for a job.
Yeah.
However, at technical director, you are trying to support the coach so that, number one, they're not losing games, they're winning games.
Yeah.
But two, you're building this longer term process for the club, and you're thinking about what are the principles of the training environment, what are the organizations that the first team, the second team will do so that players are familiar. How do we get young players from this metropolitan area of Oakland, as well as the Bay Area and Northern California, through these ranks, so that people can see on the first team players that they saw in class a couple years ago. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like,
Right.
those are things that I think the technical director is really responsible for, whereas the head coach is responsible for that team as it is right now, and developing a winning team for the weekend and for the season or a couple seasons, etc. So it
Right.
hasn't changed for me in terms of what I really enjoy. Obviously when you coach a run or timing or something like that on a Thursday and it shows up in the game on Saturday, like, yeah, that feeling is great,
That's awesome.
you
Yeah,
know.
yeah,
But
yeah.
when you say this is our style of play and you see the team week after week start to really embody that, or this is the personality that we want to have as a club, and you see the team to embody that, and you see the younger team embody that and look up to the older, start to build that relationship. I think that's equally as rewarding
Right.
in the technical director role.
Right. Well, and it's, you're overseeing the coach, right? In the sense of like, I need to insert the type of coach that I want to run and work in the vision that I have. And I feel like that's where, ideally they're working together on it, right? A technical director should not, hopefully not hire a coach that they don't think fits the vision of what they want, or that's just setting the coach up for failure. So
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I think it's a very tough place for me because I know the style of play that I would want, our team to have. And last year was very unique. And one of the things I think about the professional level is people take this idealism from the youth or from certain environments and they place it in the professional level where, we see Manchester City, as we were talking about, and there's not only an infinite amount of resources in terms of finding players that fit the model, but
mm,
also developing those players within the model, and all of that to be able to play that way. So
right,
at certain levels of professional soccer, you have to understand, like, the players dictate a lot of what you could do. Finding the right players is very important. How you train is very important, but there's also certain limitations, to a player. There's a reason why they're at USL Championship, not at the MLS, not in League, not in
right,
Bundesliga, right?
right, right,
And
right,
so
right.
that adaptation is really, I think, a responsibility of the organization to make sure that they build their model and their make their decisions commensurate with the level of the USL Championship and where we are.
Right. No, that's good. That's good. Um, well, since I'd say since we've been talking over the past what year or so, 2 year, 3 years maybe,
Yeah,
um, you've definitely given a lot of gems to me as far as advice and things to do. Like we were talking about the USL 2 job going into that is probably one of the most recent ones. But a kind of two-part question: what is some advice that you wish you would have received when you were first starting off as coaching, versus what is some advice you would give a younger coach, maybe one that's looking to maybe pursue coaching in a full time or in a more serious sense, not the, hey, I'm just doing this to get paid, but more like, hey, maybe I want to take this to another level. So, first part, what's some advice you wish you would have received?
Teachers, we want you. Are you a licensed teacher in the Missouri or Kansas KC metro area looking to make a couple extra dollars tutoring over the weekday and weekends? Well, No Stress Midwest is the place for you. No Stress Midwest Education is looking for teachers to help in one-on-one tutoring, small group academic enrichment, and study hall. We are looking for teachers to work on average 2 to 3 nights a week, 2 hours a night, in the subject of language arts, science, math, social studies, and foreign language. If you're interested, please visit nostressmidwest.com/education and fill out an application today. Cheers.
that's a good one. I think well, there's a lot of aspects to that. One of the things in terms of career, that I wish somebody, uh, nobody gave me the advice. I think because of circumstance, I ended up really getting it. But everybody, with players, we know about this kind of uh, line, and it's in and around 15, 16, where you go from tactical creativity being crucial. How many different creative solutions, novel solutions can you find?
Right.
To tactical intelligence being crucial, right? How can you choose the best one in the right moment? And I think I used to look at it like I was behind as a coach because I wasn't in this structured environment where I had my team and I had this and I had that. And what I actually realized, and this kind of goes to both parts of the question, but nobody told me that all the tactical creativity that I was getting from working in less structured environments
Mm-hmm.
was going to be beneficial. And what I would say to any young coaches, don't try to put yourself in that professional environment too early, because the unstructured coaching of, the youth club environment
Yeah.
and camps and things like that is actually really beneficial for molding your toolbox as a
Right.
coach. And I think, again, like, that was my circumstance, so it was beneficial. But I would say that to any other coaches, like, coach as much as you can in unstructured environments early, because it will make you better in the structured environment later on.
You're right.
And I think that for me has been, it's a similar path as a player to coaches. It's like, I don't know how many professional coaches have ever had to organize their team 9 versus 11 because they got 2 red cards. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But in a tournament game, things happen.
Yeah.
And like,
Yeah.
all of a sudden, you've got to have this solution. Now, what it did for me was it gave me 2 or 3 different ways that I can, fix that problem in a professional match. But that
Right.
type of creativity from a coaching standpoint is now inherent in my philosophy, whereas
For
other
some,
people
it might not.
might not
Yeah.
might not ever encounter that problem, and they view it as like, oh, this shouldn't be happening. Well, it's like,
But
okay,
it
well,
does.
it
Well,
is
that's what, yeah,
happening.
but right.
Yeah,
But here I am in a game, and
exactly.
there it is.
And so I think you look at the coaching problems, or the problems of coaching in a more structured environment, very differently if you've come from an unstructured environment. But if you spend too long in an unstructured environment, just like a player, right, you start to pick up habits
Yeah.
of coping that might not be
Yep.
beneficial for that higher level environment.
Yep. Well, and I had to coach a 9v11, but it wasn't for 2 red cards. It's because I was coaching a U17 boys in the spring season when school was getting ready to graduate, and it was prom weekend, and I didn't have any other players, right? And having to,
Exactly.
like, say, okay, hey, for 80 minutes, we're about to park this bus, and we're not moving until everyone's ready to move, right? Um, and yeah, it's those situations where you're like, hey, this is how it is. Or training only has 13 people, right? Because they just didn't show up. So I had one
Yeah.
kid cancel on a game because he had bruises from band practice. And I'm like, dude, what does that what does that even mean?
Yeah, yeah. But those problems are, like, something happens at a professional level, and people are like, well, I don't know how to solve this because I've always had, and you're
Yeah,
like, oh, well, you or myself, we're like, okay, well, this is a way to solve this, or I can come up with a couple solutions like that.
right.
Like, not, I need an hour to figure this
Right.
out, but
It's
like,
off
let's
the top
solve
of
this
the
problem.
dome. Yeah.
Exactly.
Uh, So, all right. Let's see. How have you grown as a coach from your earlier years to now, right? Or even if you want to go to last season, right, when you were last coaching. What are some things that, let's say, are here now that took time to get, and what are some things that are gone now that were really prevalent when you first started?
Um, Yeah, that's a good one. Some of the things that I know are here now, like my level of um, uh, meticulous detail in terms of my approach to a training session. I used to plan training, and this is maybe not a good thing, but I used to plan.
Have you heard the big news? No Stress Midwest has found a new home at the soccer lot located downtown Kansas City. Swing by and check out our new training facility as well as our classroom. We'll be hosting our tutoring sessions. Be sure to also check out our player lounge, which includes a TV, FIFA, ping pong, and a tech ball table for all of the needs of our trainees.
But I used to plan training, sometimes driving to training when I was
Yeah.
coaching,
Right.
3 different teams and
Same.
all that kind of stuff.
Same.
And now, I've been fortunate enough that I'm now in a situation, or I was in a situation last year where I was able to focus on one team. So I'd spend 3-4 hours
Mm-hmm.
planning one single training session that was 45 minutes,
Yeah.
right? Because that's the only time that I
Same.
had, and I
Yep.
know I needed to
Yep.
have
Yep.
these specific things. Or people always laugh, but you watch 5 or 6 games of an opponent and people are like, well, that's too much. But nobody can trick me in a game because you might have only used this formation for the last 4 games, but 8 games ago you used a different shape and you used this to solve this, and so I'm prepared for it. And so I think that level of meticulousness, and a bit of it is your anxiety as a coach. People don't talk about that anxiety that exists as you move up levels. So to calm that, when it comes to game day, the preparation is the way, right? And so I think that one of the things that existed in my early coaching days, I always pushed myself, like that's just the nature of it. It wasn't the fear of getting fired. It wasn't the fear of my athletic director coming to me and saying you're not playing good enough football. Like that didn't happen. And I was a lot more carefree when it came to coaching. And I was a lot more I was very much more a prophet for what I believed good football was at the beginning of my coaching career.
Okay.
And now I have a much better sense of good football from any coach or club is them taking what they have and maximizing it.
Right.
So I people used to say that's bad football to have a team sit in, bunker in, and hit you on the counterattack. But I'll tell you what, watching my favorite club Barcelona have 81% possession and losing, I wouldn't say that's good football. You know what I mean?
Right. Because what's the it's all like, what's the purpose, right?
And it takes good planning and execution to sit in and have 19% possession and win a game. That's not necessarily luck. Now, over the course of time, the better teams have the lion's share of possession. Okay. But I still give a lot of credit. Whereas before I used to maybe, kind of try to look down my nose at coaches who took that approach. And
like an Atletico Madrid, right? And Diego Simeone, people friggin' talk bad because it doesn't look like Barcelona and Real Madrid. And I'm like, hey, this man's in the top 3, if not winning it, like every season. So say whatever it is that you want, what it looks like, what it doesn't look like. But to me, like, good football is winning games, and like, yeah, you can have the tiki taka, which is what we've become used to as dominant possession. And, I think you talked about in one of our calls, the ABAC, right? The passing patterns. And yeah, that does look great. I'm not going to lie. But at the same time, they say a 1-0 win is the easiest result, like.
Well, and people think that it lacks intelligence to sit deep and break on the counter. I argue complete opposite. Like that is so difficult to not have the ball, keep your position. One step out of position can cost you the game, and to be focused. And so I think, and that was a thing that changed for me, is to see that approach as meticulous and detailed and intelligent, not as just taking the easy route out. Because I don't believe it's the easy route. And I think it's whether it's cultural, and I say cultural, not necessarily country to country, but just, within Northern California, you'll find some clubs that are okay with that approach, some clubs that are okay with another approach. To each their own. And I think if they do it to the best of their abilities, my hat's off to them.
Right. No, it's I mean, there's so many ways to play the game. There's so many ways to coach it, right? And I think you see that as if anyone that watches the game and you watch in each league, versus Euros, right? Versus the Champions League, like there's just so many different styles because coaches all have a vision. Now, granted, the rules of the game don't change. You just want to put the ball in the net more time than the other team. That's the universal. But how we decide to do that, I think, is so fascinating because we all have different ways of wanting to do that, and getting people to want to do it. So makes it pretty cool.
Absolutely, that's the game.
Um, well, Jordan, man, we're getting ready to wrap up. As I started, I said to some of the guests in earlier episodes, the Zoom is really they're really locking down on these calls. Um, but as we're winding down, is there anything that you would like to leave the listeners with? Whether it's maybe any final advice, maybe you want to talk about the run that Oakland Roots is about to go on in the championship season. Uh, Whatever it is, anything you want to leave us with.
No, well, yes, we are about to go on a run. Somehow, the soccer gods just keep allowing results to go our way, and we keep a foot in the door. So
There we
you're
go.
gonna watch the magic of Oakland happen in real time here in 2022. But I think the one thing, and this has been something that again, as I've progressed in my career, it's only become more apparent to me, is that the best of the best minds, the most effective, the people who have longevity, at higher levels and at lower levels. Like, number one, they really enjoy it. I think there's sometimes when people can make football about a whole bunch of other things, and it isn't necessarily fun. And when it's your job, it's there's even
Yeah,
sometimes more difficulty in finding that joy.
yeah,
But number one, always, go to work, and whether you're working in administration in football or you're working in coaching, just make sure that you're enjoying it and finding the joy in it. And then lifelong learning, man. And I think that, as you and I've chatted more and more, like, I learned so much from our conversations. And I learned so much from watching other people's sessions. I learned so much from, listening to other talks and podcasts and things like that. And always trying to find little bits and pieces that you can add. I think that is, it's an endless process. You see people like, Sir Alex or Carlo Ancelotti. I mean, brilliant, right? Like, going from, a lot of different levels, different clubs, different cultures, all of this, and being at the stage that he's at, and being open, but also understanding where his blind spots are, and
yeah,
recognizing that he needs to put people in those positions to support him, and he needs to learn this and have this. And I think that is, like I said, it's an approach that will pay off no matter what. But that lifelong learning is something that I think, anybody, whether they're starting out or they're 20, 30 years in, can really benefit from. And it makes the soccer world, it makes the world a better place when people have that growth mindset.
for sure. Yeah, no, the growth mindset's big. And I mean, if you have a closed mind, you're not going to be able to adapt and keep up with this game. You'd still be playing sweepers, stoppers, huh? And
Yeah.
back in the dark days. Well, Jordan, man, I want to thank you for your time being a guest. I still owe you a visit out there. I know this year I was supposed to, couldn't make it happen, but I do want to get out there soon. So hopefully 2023 season I'll be able to make my way there. But yeah, thank you for being a guest. This wraps up another episode of season 5, the No Stress Midwest podcast. Everyone, thanks for listening. We'll see you on the next one. Cheers.
Take care. Thanks, Brian.